Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Quantum Show. Special guest, R. Keith Andrews. Thank you for joining me, R. Keith. I appreciate you being on the Quantum Show.
I appreciate being here.
All
It's
right.
like I tell people, drop in, give you a listen.
Thank you. And I plug your show every show. I talk about your show every show because it's there's literally no downside except the use of time. That's it. That's the only downside. And we're all going to use time somehow. So, uh, Keith, you are an author and public speaker and have
I
been
am.
in the paranormal for all of your life. I will go ahead and tell me about the books that you have. Just as this is the introduction, people. Hello to everyone in the chat room. Hit like and subscribe if you're here. You're Quantum, and I wanted to give a good intro for Keith because quality.
If you're looking for quality, why'd you bring me on the show for?
What am I doing here? Alrighty then. But yeah, tell us about the right now. Tell us about the. We'll get to Antarctica. That's the topic. But tell us about your books that you have right now,
Okay.
please.
The easiest one, the big one, which has been a lifelong thing, is this one. That's book technically, well, literally, it's book 10 of a 12 volume set.
Okay.
Okay, but this is the Elderbachian Chronicles. Now this one takes place after the fall of man, but the original story is written in the appendix here. It literally covers, the whole series covers from literally the beginning of time as you know it, all the way through 4 ages into the fall and rise of man.
Okay.
This one's the birth of the wolf pack. It's already out in print, obviously.
All right.
As is the sequel, which is the end of an epoch. The Return to Paradise, which is the third one, we're closing in on the completion date for.
Okay. And those are your fantasy, sci-fi fantasy novels?
They are science fantasy. Some people may call them science fiction.
Okay.
Because these 3 are post-apocalyptic. The original 8 were really science fantasy, but they take place way back. And the thing is that the races in them, you'll see the personalities of many of the races, but they are tied to this book, which is Races of the World. And this has 59 races in it that I've personally dealt with hand to hand, face to face.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Hand to hand means something else.
Yeah, that's why I figured I better correct it, because I haven't actually gotten into a fight with many of them. I'm a pacifist. You wouldn't know that by the books, but now, in those books, you'll find those. But this is the other part of my life's work, which are self-help books. This one is Believe in Yourself and Follow Your Dreams. Okay, that details literally the tools I used to personally take my life from being very reclusive, very low self-esteem, to what it is today, which is a complete shambles. But no,
not a shambles from where I'm sitting. From how I see
it has taken a major turn for the better. Then I've got Believe in Your Business and Follow Your Dreams, which details how I literally laid out and designed a company that not only is currently global, okay, not doing a whole lot, but I haven't done anything with it, but it's set to make a very good run. And then I've got Believe in Your Finances and Follow Your Dreams, which shows how I've taken a very tiny income and turned it into a way of actually making a living. Now that's 6. And then I've got these 2. And this one here is a children's book. That's Mr. Dreamcatcher. Okay, written literally for my eldest son, because I got bored of reading the same books that you guys did. Things like the Berenstain Bears and Dr. Seuss.
Right.
Well, this particular story, he wouldn't go to bed. I started reading it for him when he was about 2. And until about a month before he turned 8, he wouldn't go to bed without it.
Okay.
Net result, I wrote the sequel for my second son.
Mm-hmm.
So
What is
all
the
of
sequel
these,
of that? What's the
the
title of it?
sequel is the sequel is Mr. Dreamcatcher Returns.
Okay.
Okay. Now the neat part about it from my end, every one of these books, the only place you can get them is directly through me for the moment.
Okay.
Okay. And that would be at, you can either drop in to R. Keith Andrews at rkeithandrews.com, which is my website, or drop me a line at innervoiceenterprises@yahoo.ca.
The email address is in the description of today's video, as well as Keith's YouTube channel where he talks about his stuff more in depth.
Yeah, and in the YouTube channel, especially if we're live, there is a direct link to buy me a coffee where
Mm-hmm.
every book can be accessed.
Also, right, I put one link for his channel and his email address in the description here. Please feel free to go click. You can even click away from the show if you want to, but I prefer you didn't. Hold off. His link with all his other links are in the description here. Okay, so we've covered. Are those your books so far?
That's the 7 I've got in print.
In print.
I
Okay.
have I've got an 8th one that somebody else wrote that I've published because I am building a publishing company.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody else wrote a book that I now have published. But until I get go ahead from 2 people, I can't put it on the market.
Understood. Agreements must be made. Contracts must be forged out. Totally
Ultimately,
understood.
yes.
So, okay, you have been on many radio shows, and I would like to ask you about. You have been on, uh, was it Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott?
Yes.
And I know you have a long-standing relationship with Dave over there, and everybody over there.
Pretty much.
Mm-hmm. And I have listened to all of your shows over there. And let me tell y'all, people, y'all just now tuning in who are not too familiar with the history of the Quantum Show and R. Keith Andrews Show. For the longest time, I thought R. Keith thought I was a troll and was avoiding me. Keith, I did think that. I did think that because I would ask the questions, and I do remember you taking exception to the questions in a good way, like, oh, well, that's an interesting way to put it. The quantum way, come to find out.
Well,
And yeah, go ahead.
as far as my thinking you were a troll, in all fairness, until just a couple of weeks ago on my own show, I didn't even understand what a troll was. I thought they were 9 feet tall, regenerated,
Right.
and was much of a hurry.
Right.
That was my understanding of trolls. You know.
Yeah, well, internet troll, we all know what that is now.
Now,
And
yes.
it took me a while to get a real good message across, and like I'm glad you finally responded. I am, because we have pretty much gotten a pretty good friendship going on, I would think.
It's not bad. I'm certainly not complaining about it.
Yeah.
Let's face it, if I didn't like you, I wouldn't promote your show at all.
Same.
Yeah.
We're here. We're here. I've Raven is in the chat. Hello, Raven in the chat, and she has put up your website address, and I
Oh,
have it
perfect.
displayed right now. Also, hello. I said hi to everybody behind the scenes, but hi to everybody in the chat room. Aussie Tiger, great to see you. Likey, smashy, smashy. Heck yeah, always. And okay, so yeah, some of the talks. My favorite bad question I've ever heard been asked of you is, what do aliens taste like? And I try to stay away from all those kinds of questions because there's plenty of those out there.
Oh, Lord, yeah.
And I don't need to know. I don't need to know
I'm glad to hear that.
I'm like, okay. And when those types of questions come up, I'm like, I need to email him. Well, that's then, when
Yeah.
before we had established a rapport that we have. Okay, and also, I've heard you say on Dave's show that you have had several past lives for millennia, many millennia,
Well, that would be
and
that would be an understatement.
mm, so how about when Antarctica was a thriving continent?
Well, it was still cold, just not as cold.
Hmm.
Um, you know, no, it was a in that world, like in that time frame, it was essentially a megapolis. You know, it was one, quite frankly, and you'll love this one. Oh, by the way, I do want to throw something in that I got asked years ago, and I came up with a very blunt answer.
Hmm.
So before somebody kind of pops it up, because it hit me wrong the last time, I was asked why people should believe me. My response was, shall we say, politically incorrect.
Hmm.
The reality is, I can't prove anything I'm about to tell you. Okay, somebody else gets to do the research to figure it out. But the first thing we got to realize with Atlantis, or with Antarctica, is there is a direct link between it and Atlantis.
Yes.
So when we're talking about Antarctica and what's down there, well, let's put it this way: it is one of 12 satellite cities.
Okay.
Okay, but the technology was something bizarre, and I cannot build it, but I've got the schematics in my head of of the actual functionality of their literal energy, their operational batteries.
Okay.
Okay, their power source, which was a combination of hydroelectric, solar, and wind.
Okay. Now, let me ask you, does the word two-eye stone mean anything to you?
Two eye stone.
Two-eye stone.
Yeah, it wasn't. You're close, but it was a twi-stone.
What was it called?
And it's not two eye, it's twi.
Okay. How do you
Okay,
Tuoui?
that's close enough. Let's put it that way.
Okay. So not two-eye, twi.
It's a twi-stone, and it was part of the communications array. But understand, their communications array was not just for vocal communication.
Right?
Okay, that twi-stone was part of a method of literally, um well, we'll call it intercity. It had to be downgraded, but when they originally brought it online, it was actually for interstellar.
Okay, that makes sense. How would it be interstellar? Do you have an idea of how
Oh
that
yeah,
would be accomplished?
oddly enough, and you'll love this one because you should have asked me about this before in a sense, but you wanted it online with no spoilers.
Right? No spoilers. Go ahead.
In the second printing of this, which I'm in the process of tying off, I've
Hmm.
actually got the baseline for it. Okay, but the thing was, it was designed to literally transmit voice, visual, and physical components straight through star systems, planets, with a literally unlimited range.
Okay. And I know you're not a technician nowadays. You're not technical nowadays, but how would that be accomplished using this twi-stone?
Ultimately speaking, you have to align the biomagnetic and the biometric. Okay, we'll try English. Well, no, we won't. Biomagnetic subquantum magnetic frequency in order to modify the transference of matter through oscillating matter interruptions.
Oscillating matter interruptions.
Things that were moving from physical to liquid to gaseous and back.
Okay. Okay.
Now, the Manhattan Project touched on it a little. Okay, they figured out how to create a problem. And I mean, the Manhattan Project was a wonderful little stunt. If they'd kept working on it, they could have accomplished a lot more. But they panicked. Can't imagine why.
Yeah. Well, that's humans. Yeah, when the ship disappears and everyone starts to become part of the environment, people tend to panic because they didn't know what they were getting into. And they didn't follow through long enough. Okay, so they had the Twistone meant to travel space regardless, and there's no okay. How does that does it respect our understanding of the speed of light, or is that irrelevant?
Well, it's relevant, kind of like the speed that a cheetah or that an Indian swift flies is akin to the way that you walk.
Okay.
There is a connection, but yeah, I got to ask you, bizarre as this is going to sound like a question, but how did you spell your rendition of the Twistone?
I am spelling it. I'll put it on screen. I'll put it on screen. I meant to put it on screen. Tuoi. I'm sure that's not correct, but
oh, that's okay. I work with the thing is when I start piecing things together, I do my best to phrase it in terminology, and this is going to sound completely off center, but that current humans understand. That can be a little bit problematic.
okay. Well, I can see why you're doing it because if this is my interpretation, how many other people are going to interpret it that same way?
Exactly.
Right. And I know it's not an English word, so it's not going to be to I. So I'm giving it the best. I mean, sounding it out. It's probably not right, but that's just my off the top.
You
I
work
never
with
knew
what
how
you
to
got.
spell it. Yeah, I never knew how to spell it. But okay, so it would be uh how do I put this? Relative to the speed of light as we understand it, does it go by the same principles or does it use different principles that we don't know yet? Or
Technically, it uses the same principle. It doesn't use the same particle.
particle? Okay. We are using light here, which is to our understanding is the benchmark of the maximum all particles can go. But that
And
is
for the
within
moment,
yeah, that is within our sphere of understanding, given
exactly.
all the conditions that we are able to observe. We are able to observe. We can't observe all conditions because, well, we're just not there yet. We don't even know literally what's sitting in front of us.
Ultimately correct.
Okay.
You
And
know,
I will say that with scientific accuracy, that we don't know literally what's sitting in front of us because this camera, this stand, this room looks solid, but we know that it is not because we know that matter is energy compacted, put together in a certain way under certain conditions. If it was 3,000 degrees in here, none of this matter would be able to exist in this form. It would exist in another form, a plasma, well, another form. I'm not going to say what form because I don't know. I don't have 3,000 degrees to test it.
yeah, I'm recommending you don't try it.
No, I'm not going to try it. So, okay, so the two eye stone. Now, I'm not. I'm not going to grill you on exactly, what buttons to press to make this two eye stone work, but we've got two eye stone was a communications and transportation device, right? Is that what?
It's part of.
Okay.
Let me call something up here. One of the nice things about actually sitting in front of a computer that I'm working on is I happen, because I've been working on the second printing here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now where are we? There we are.
Right. It's not fair to say this is it. This is the device, because we have oscillators and they enable things to communicate in our electronic devices, but you need surrounding architecture. So I got you. It's part of a system,
It's part of it.
the Twistone. Right? Like a radio has an oscillator, but it also has a speaker, and it also has
Well,
a button and a power supply. And you take any one of those away, it's no longer a working radio. So
see, if you take the Twistone, okay, what you've got is a short range is a short range what the heck did they call it? Not CB, but the handheld radios people used to use.
walkie-talkie.
That'd be the word I'm looking for.
Okay.
A Twistone is essentially a walkie-talkie,
Okay.
but it's a walkie-talkie that will reach into intercity.
Okay. And it what principle does it basically work on? You don't stick a battery onto it, right?
No, the Twistone itself is the device.
Okay.
It's just it's part of another device. Now the principle is simple. Okay, and it's one that's going to completely throw people for a trip. What is the theory of relativity, according to what you understand?
Oh, jeez. You had to. Hey, you're the one being interviewed here, Keith. What is
Well,
the
I'd ask the audience, but you know,
theory of relativity? Is that everything is relative to the perspective of the observer, and I think you know what? I'll just Google it. I have a computer too, Keith. Okay.
I know this is just the way things work.
Okay, you're right. This is how the way things work. Okay, I will read from Google, which is probably not all the way correct or leaving stuff out. According to the theory of general relativity, matter causes space to curve. It is posited that gravitation is not a force as understood by Newtonian physics, but a curved field, an area of space under the influence of a force in the space-time continuum that is actually created by the presence of mass. So that is the theory of you know what? I'm going to post it up. That is the basis of the theory of general relativity. And it split it into two. It won't
Now,
yet.
of
Yes,
course,
go ahead.
you've heard the concept that in order to explain something, you have to be able to, if in order to say, I know what I'm talking about, you've got to be able to explain it in simplest terms.
Yes.
Okay, get this. Their functional theory of relativity, and frankly, it's the same one I still use to this day. 1 + 1 = 3. It's
Okay.
not math.
All right.
That's about as simple as the way you're going to get it. What that means is this, and take it from anything you're looking at. Time, distance, space, doesn't matter. You have one, and point 1 is here, plus point 2, your destination, is 3, because everything in the middle is your third point.
Oh, I see. Okay. I understand
Past,
that.
present, and future. Okay. You have now, later, and before. Get the picture?
Yes.
So with the Twistone, they take a look at, now there was I forget who the author was, But way back in the 60s, I think, there was a young lady that wrote a book called A Wrinkle in Time.
Yes.
Okay. And what she wrote about was far more accurate than she thought. Take the plane of existence, wherever you are. You start on this point. You start on one end of the page, get to the eye, and your destination is over here. You didn't travel the distance. You folded it. Okay. And once folded, you simply walk through the other side, creating essentially a doorway.
Okay. Right. That is one of the wormhole theories, except go ahead, sorry.
Ultimately, it follows the same principle. That's why they can navigate, why they could navigate the wormholes.
Okay, now just so now everyone here is a big science fiction buff or science buff, and they hear wormholes and it means something to everyone. Let's get a baseline. The wormhole is, go ahead and tell us your version of the wormhole, please, Keith.
Ultimately, it is a spot that joins two different spots, either in any space. As in, we have active wormholes on Earth that are not disrupting the world. Okay. But it literally means there's a spot in one location, and somewhere else at any number of distances is another hole.
Right.
Okay. The shortest form would be a doorway, as in you're walking from your living room into your kitchen.
Okay.
Ultimately, that's a wormhole. You're going from one area into a distinctly different area.
Right. Okay, I understand that, but what if your living room is here and your kitchen is 10 miles away? How does that doorway connect from here to here?
You're thinking in terms of 10 miles.
You're correct. I need to,
Ultimately, you're looking at, ultimately, if you put your hands together, okay, it's one cell against another, or one molecule against another.
yes.
Okay. They do the same thing at 10 miles distance. It's one molecule to the next.
That would be in quantum entanglement
Okay.
on this planet.
Yeah.
That's what they call it on this planet. Quantum entanglement. And I just as a side note, I love it when people say first you take two particles and you quantum entangle them. Then you and it's like, whoa, hold up. You missed a whole big part here. But okay, I understand quantum entanglement is it's it's relatively easy. You imagine it because we are quantum entangled. I call it the quantum link. You call it 0 point. Same thing.
Same
It's
thing,
the same,
different name.
right. It helps me to understand it. It's not an argument.
Oh, no,
I'm
no,
just
no.
putting it in
Yeah.
terms.
This is why I tell people, when I'm talking to you, we call it different things, but we seem to be on the same page.
We sure do
You know,
on a lot of stuff.
there's a couple of people that I have that same interaction with and we're not all from the same field by any means. I mean, let's face it, I'm a lot of things, and a scientist this lifetime is not one of them.
Right. Okay. So, all right. Let's jump back to your experiences with Antarctica. And now we understand the two eye. The sorry, I've been calling it that forever. Twice done.
Don't worry about it from that standpoint. I understand what you're referring to, and therefore, as long as we understand, and this is the problem, Gene Roddenberry actually pointed it out. Okay, way back in the 60s,
Hmm.
that when dealing with different races, the biggest problem was there was no functional connection. Okay, in our case, we both happen to know the way that this world speaks. We've got that. Okay, so I understand what you're referring to. We have no problem with the communication line.
Right. Okay, for everyone just joining the show, what that means it to all y'all muggles out there, it's some hippy dippy stuff that y'all just don't get. Okay, quantum link and 0 point manipulation. It takes a leap of faith, knowing that it's there, because that's your leap of faith. You got to know it's there, and I know it's there because just
The funny thing there is exactly what I had to tell. What I've told people all my life. I can't make you understand it. I can explain it, but I cannot make you understand it.
right.
You know, and it's not on. It took me to explain the OTE drive to somebody with a master's in rocketry and astrophysics. Took me 2 hours. I don't have a science background. They
Mhm.
threw me out of science class in elementary when I was in middle school, or what we call junior high.
Okay.
But when we're talking about the Twistone itself, it's only part of a much bigger part. I just didn't realize that you guys had knowledge of it. Somebody
Oh
sent me
yeah.
a picture. Somebody sent me a picture of another component part and asked me what the heck it was. And I went, well, here's what it is. And he goes, but it's not giving off any energy. I says, check the magnetic wavelength. He goes, why
Mhm.
would I check the magnetic wavelength? It's not magnetic. I says, and that matters to me. Why? So he
Mhm.
checked it. It comes back and goes, the readings are off the charts. But how? I said, I don't do the how. you know,
Mhm. Right.
but the Twistone is a connect. It is a piece that is plugged into it is a refined communication system in and of itself, but it's part of a much bigger one.
Right.
Or
Okay.
more importantly, it's part that can be added to a much bigger one.
Right. Understood. Okay. And all right. So these were in use in Antarctica as well as Atlantis and all the other outlying city parts, right?
Yes,
Okay.
that
And
was
they
their
were used.
communication hub.
Say again?
That was the communication hub. They moved it to Atlanta. They moved the communication hub to Antarctica for one reason. It was warmer than the North Pole.
Oh, well, that's a good reason. I
Yeah.
would say that's a pretty good reason.
It also put it an equidistant point from everywhere else.
Mhm. All right. And now what life did you now you've lived past lives. We all have, but you remember them, which I'm like, wow, okay. Did
Well,
you lead did you do anything in Antarctica?
I did. I didn't actually live in Antarctica. I worked in Antarctica. I
Okay.
lived in Atlantis.
Okay. What
Okay.
what were you doing there?
I was actually a rocket scientist, literally in Atlantis, but I wasn't the one that built the, like I I handled a lot of the micro adjustments necessary for interstellar flight.
So you were an assistant or like a second mate or well, no, not second mate, but you were an engineer on a team.
I was an engineer on a team. I was
Okay.
not the lead.
Right. Okay. Um now tell us about the rest of your life before you came to be that engineer.
Before I became that engineer,
Yeah, dig deep.
um,
Tell us about family life of that lifetime.
yeah,
Not now because that's like all privacy issues and stuff, but of that lifetime because I don't think they were online back then.
no, not really. You know, no, it was very much number one. Nobody in that society was better than the next. Okay, it didn't matter what your knowledge base was.
Mhm.
We were as a child. I was encouraged to ask whatever questions I had. Ask, and if you did, and then once you asked, we would be told Go and talk to this person. Go and try and give this a shot. Right. Go and experience it. And I think this is a carryover in a sense. Essentially, we were told, don't take my word for it. Do your own research, but
Right.
talk to somebody that did it first.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You know, if you're working with a fusion reactor, don't try and build it without talking to somebody that knows what it's going to do.
Okay. So, of your life there, so you, mm, like, tell me about the home life that you led.
Well,
I'm not sure.
essentially,
Mhm.
I'm just trying to think. We had 15 kids in the same room. They weren't all of the same parent. It was not, understand, we didn't have an orphanage per se. What
Mhm.
we had was a living school.
Okay. You know what? Let's draw out a little bit. Tell me about the society that was there. You've told me about the asking questions, but tell me how society was put together.
Society was put
General.
together. On the whole, there was a governing council.
Mhm.
Okay, but they did not have a leader. Okay, they had a spokesperson depending on the question that was handed and that was at hand, because the lead scientist or the lead, I don't know if you want to call him a scientist. A farmer isn't usually referred to as a scientist, right? But if
Right.
it was a farming issue, then the guy that knew the farm, the new farming, would be he would be the lead, and he would be the one that would dictate. Okay, I need to hear from you and get your input. But even if you were, he was a farmer, he would go to the people. Okay, the first thing that would happen is we'd go to the people, just the general population, and go, okay, we know we're trying to improve food production.
Mhm.
This is what we require. What do you require in order for us to accommodate that? And
Okay.
it was a unified society from that standpoint.
Okay. So, what about commerce? Now I know what did they use money and what did they use for
No,
money? But they did not use money.
they didn't use money, period.
Okay.
They
What?
used the one thing everybody had an absolute abundance of.
What's that?
They used man hours.
Time. Back in the
Bingo.
quantum. Right back to the quantum.
They took a look at it and went, how much time, what's it going to take to build this? Well, it'll take X number of man hours. Great. You do that and I'll do this for you.
Okay.
Okay.
Right. Sounds
That
like
was
a
the way.
okay. That sounds very reasonable, honestly. It sounds
Oddly
very
enough, yeah.
reasonable because say I need well if now I am a technician by trade, right? A computer technician, networks and stuff. So
Right.
if I need, say, some construction stuff built, yard work, I am not very good at that. I'm not good at that at all. I would trade where like I would work on his maintenance needs for his machines and his computers and say
Yes.
and he would put in man hours to my steps, my door frames, my yard.
Whatever was required in that department. Exactly.
Right. And then we would here's a question. We would establish 40 hours for 40 hours or 10 hours for 10 hours or what would it be? Do you remember?
Whatever. Ultimately, it was one for one.
Okay, so it was one for one. All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. And it didn't matter if you were the head of a corporation or a broom pusher.
I really like that system.
It didn't matter at all. Whatever you were, one man hour was worth one man hour. Period.
So we were there I go, dropping straight into the quantum. We were in this society. As in literally personally you and I've been doing that a lot. I don't know, something's starting to click up here maybe. That's for another show or almost every other show. so so there was no money. How about family structure? You say you were living in a live-in school?
The children, I was as a child. That's not where it was when I was born. Okay,
Mhm.
we were, the people living in Antarctica, okay, were heterosexual. Okay,
Okay.
they would produce kids very much the same way that we do. Okay, fortunately, they would take the kids and actually teach them to think for themselves right from the get go.
Mhm.
There was no, oh, you're not old enough, you can't do that. There was, you're not tall enough, you can't reach that. Okay. But
Mhm.
then some parents would go, you're too short to reach that, so figure it out. you know, and they would literally teach them what we consider now rebellious nature. The parents would actually teach the kids to rebel
Mhm.
against structured thinking. It has to be done this way. And we were taught right from the get go. No, it doesn't. That is just the way that everybody's been doing it. Doesn't mean it has to be done that way.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay. Go ahead.
So ultimately, a family was, yes, they did have a mother and a father. Like there was a mother and a father. Because, like I said, families were heterosexual.
Okay.
Okay. Now, when you look at some of what goes on in today's society, it just flat out wasn't tolerated. Okay. And what I mean by tolerated, I mean you could not lay a hand on your spouse that was an angry hand
Okay.
for a couple of reasons. Their legal system was pretty brutal. Okay. But the people we were taught from the get go, didn't matter what it was, you were responsible for your own actions. We absolutely got told you have free will, you have free choice, you
Mhm.
do not have freedom from consequence.
Okay. So that was a standing understood rule in society of the
That was
people.
that was understood in civilization.
Okay. Right, because
See,
there were other groups of people at the time, right?
yeah, you got to remember when I said there were 12 anchor points. The Atlantean Empire
Right.
had 12 cities, if you will. Each city had its own society. Okay,
Okay.
just like in your city, the people in your little community have their rules, and the ones in the next community over have some slightly different ones, but they all fall under one umbrella.
Right. Right. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. And so you say you use the term heterosexual. So you mean family structure, right?
Family structure. One male. They believed one male, one female to run a home. They did not say you could not have two males having a relationship or two
Right.
females.
Okay.
But a family was literally the offspring of a natural interaction between two parties. And let's
Okay.
face it, even in today's world, you're not going to produce a child if they're both the same, if both parties are the same sex.
That's true. So I just wanted to clarify because there seems to be some points of contention about that. But here we
Always
are.
were.
I am not going to let that be a point of contention here. It's just, okay, note taken, and we're driving on. And I'm not going to argue. Who am I to argue? So, and
Oh, you would
I'm
be
not
Nathan.
inviting argument from the chat room. Thank you.
You would be Nathan of the Quantum Show.
I would
Just to
be.
be
I
clear on
am
who you are.
right.
Yeah.
So, uh, all right. So that was the family structure, and there were all the relationships that you could ever want as long as they didn't get in the way of you bartering your time because people needed stuff
Oh yeah.
and people would do things trading time doing services that they knew how to do. They weren't forced to do anything, were they? Were
No.
people made okay, they weren't made to
They
learn
weren't
new stuff.
forced to, but if your mother, if the one that was training you, let's say your mom and dad had a business and they happen to be accountants.
Yes.
Okay. Then the odds were that you were getting taught the skills of becoming an accountant. But if you came up and went, but dad, I really want to be a drummer. Okay, son, go find a drummer. We'll help you find a drummer, and here's how to calculate out where to find one.
Mm-hmm.
I can't teach you drumming. So go figure it out and make the most of it.
Right.
But there was never, oh, you didn't follow my footsteps, so I'm disowning you.
Okay. Yeah, we have a lot of that in today's society.
Yeah. In their world, you couldn't disown a family member because it was impossible to disentangle the genetics. It was a purely logical thing. Genetically,
Okay.
you're related. I don't care whether you like what the guy's doing.
Well, this sounds like another very reasonable way of doing things. So, and do you recall if there were what kind of crime existed? I'm trying to give
Well,
people an idea of the way the world was, not anything other than that. I don't want to
oh,
focus in on the weirdness of everything, but the normal stuff. Go ahead.
normal stuff that people would understand. There were drug dealers. There were criminal, crime bosses and what have you. But there were no life sentences because life sentence was a real short thing if you ever got caught. It was a real short journey.
Why is that?
Okay. Well, because in today's world, when you get put into lifetime incarceration, they put you in a cell and just forget the status of what goes on there.
Yes.
Okay. You're saying the cell you got put into was a power cell for a fusion reactor.
Okay, so you were basically injected into the matrix?
Ultimately, you were torn apart and turned into the energy system.
Oh, so you were recycled or upcycled.
Upcycled, recycled. It did cut down on repeat offenders.
I can see that. But okay, now just to make clear, everybody, these guys were not Borg. They they weren't
No.
like, oh, you are defective, out you go. No, there was. Would they work with them to try to improve, like first offense, second offense, etc.?
First offense, okay. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but in a nutshell, depending on what the offense was, first offense, they would do their best to re-educate you. You would get sent. When I talk about re-educate, I don't mean they beat you black and blue until you agreed.
Right.
They
That's
would
not
go back to the basic beginnings. This is why it works. And their whole thing was literally built on the three karmic laws.
okay.
Okay. This is what you're aiming for. They find out, first of all, why did you do that? Okay. That's the first question they ever ask.
So there
Many
was
times
investigation
there
into
was
the
investigation.
causes. Okay. Go ahead.
It became a lot shorter if you were caught murdering somebody and it was just blatant. You were murdering, right? It was pretty cut and dried. You killed, you're no longer sticking around.
Right.
Okay.
Well,
There
that
was
is.
a real quick way to figure out if it was accidental or intentional.
Mhm.
Okay. Premeditated, there was virtually no trial. Right. It's like, now, yes, some innocents got caught in the crossfire.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And no, if the innocents got caught in the crossfire, it was the price of having a safe society.
Unfortunately, I can see that. Um, I can agree with that because sometimes, yeah, it's the cost of having a safe society. Go ahead.
That was ultimately their outlook. Okay. So what you had was people that would push the limits. That's where the explorers came in.
Mhm.
Okay. The ones that looked at the city you were living in and going, yeah, this is all fine and dandy, but what's over the horizon or what's outside the door? And it's like, I don't know, but the door's right there, and since it's not bolted from the inside, you know,
Let's go look.
so curiosity was encouraged.
Hmm. Okay. All right. Now we've gone over work and we've gone over uh family, basically families, right?
Yes.
And generational thing. And we've gone over legal system. Well, we haven't gone over legal system. We've gone over the general idea of how they ran things when like there was no constant it wasn't a one shot you're done type thing.
No,
There was
there are societies that do that, but no, the people from Antarctica, well, from the entire Atlantean civilization.
yeah.
Okay. And I'm trying to remember because I used to know I've got notes on it, so I may well have it. There were 12 communities or like 12 anchor points plus Atlantis itself.
Okay.
Okay. But Atlantis was the central hub of the society.
Right. Okay. Okay. There are 12 with Atlantis as kind of a hub, right? Did they have different functions or like focusing in on Antarctica, right? We know where it is. So, did it have a specific function or was it a society that had several functions for the
Well,
whole or was that even a thing?
oh no, it had a very specific function. It was what is the word I'm looking for? It was a societal link with what you know as inner earth.
Okay. Here we are, inner earth. It was a societal link to inner earth.
Well, when I said the reason that Atlantis was chosen was because it was warmer than the North Pole,
Well, Antarctica. Yes.
or Antarctica rather. When Antarctica was picked, it was because it was warmer than the North Pole at the time. They weren't planning on it freezing over.
Was that what happened then? What was it? What we talking about? Pole shift or
No, in all fairness, it had to do much more with technological failure. You
okay?
see,
Go ahead.
like I said, I've got in my head the schematics for an energy conversion device.
Hmm.
Okay, that worked on thermal, hydroelectric, solar, and wind. Okay, but there was a glitch at one point where instead of it drawing the heat and keeping the area clear,
Hmm.
something happened, and we don't know what happened. In all fairness, I wasn't there when it happened. Okay, but when that cascade happened, everything froze over. Okay, not instantaneously, but it was what caused the start of the collapse of the you know of the Atlantean Empire.
Hmm.
Okay, it wasn't what finished it. What finished it happened in Atlantis itself.
Right. Well, we're not going there. We're going to your time in Antarctica.
Yeah,
Um.
they had a system. They were drawing, and they had worked it out quite nicely. They were drawing the thermal energy off the core through an access gate.
Hmm.
Okay, but that access gate was actually created by the people because the people in Antarctica were not Terran humans.
Right.
The people in Inner Earth were willing to extend a little bit more aware or a little bit more cooperation with them.
Okay. Well, who is it that you remember is in inner Earth, or are they still there?
Oh, they're still there.
Okay.
Many of what you call mythological or fairy tale beings,
Hmm.
many of them are alive and well in what you call Inner Earth.
Okay. All right. A lot of those mythical beings, I'm sure we don't know exactly. Even our own mythological beings are not going to be correct. right? Because we're their interpretations handed down for many generations. Like, um, what is it? A centaur, right?
Yes.
How is that different from the reality of? Is he one of them? Are they one of them? Is that race one of them?
They are one of the races inside. They were not.
Okay,
They weren't part of the Antarctican Empire.
right.
You know, the
Inner Earth,
Antarctican. Yeah, they
right?
weren't part of that community,
Right. They
but
were
they are
just
part of the inner Earth.
right. They were there, and they were in contact with the. I believe they were called. Uh, oh, jeez, I'm having a. It's been a long day, Keith. I'm sorry. They were Lanteans.
Okay. Okay. First of all, who was in contact with the Atlanteans?
Not Atlanteans. The non-human Lanteans from the people inner Earth.
Oh, okay. Yes, the people in Antarctica were in contact with the people in inner Earth.
Okay, and
Understand, there is a whole world underneath this one.
I believe it. I believe it because we don't understand. We don't understand this planet yet. Science shows that, and we're making best guesses. The mantle, the crust, the core. They don't know. They don't know. They can't get anything down there. And let me tell y'all, geological readings can be manipulated. I don't mean by people they're faking the information. They're
They're
getting what they're
receiving,
getting. Right.
they're
They're getting
receiving
right.
miscalculated.
Right. They're like, put up the cloak. It's kind of like a cloaking device. Like they shoot the radar. Uh, I can't think of any of the words right now. I swear this is a science show, y'all. Paranoid. This is. It really is. I can't think of any of the words right now. We have all the readings from the sonar, radar. None of that, but it's something like that. That, but they're being like, oh, here comes one. Let's send them this one back. Right.
Essentially correct.
Okay.
But the people down there have a funnier way of doing it. Here comes the picture, and they go, how about if we tweak that? They don't bother taking another picture. They just take the one that you've got, modify the output, and send it back. You may well be looking at a full city and look at a chunk of stone.
Okay.
You know, in Japan, in today's world, because the highways are so narrow and so twisted, they develop technology where they've got a camera on the front of the semis that
Yes.
produces the picture. It broadcasts the picture, what's in front of it, on the back of the semi.
Oh, I've seen those. I've seen that. Right. So drivers behind them can see if they need to pass, they can pass safely because they can't see beyond the truck.
Bingo.
Right. Okay. All right.
That's
Well,
a very primitive version of what these guys have.
okay. But
See,
the principle is the same.
the principle is exactly the same.
Okay. And okay. So Keith, it has been an hour.
Well, that was quick.
It was pretty quick, wasn't it? And this has been a great hour. We're gonna have. Can we continue this at another point? Because
Well, we
there's
can't.
many
They were
more
at the same point.
aspects.
There better be another one.
Okay, right. Okay, so we're gonna have to wrap up this part of the Quantum Show, and this has been the first hour interview with R. Keith Andrews. Keith, I am going to have to start pushing those buttons, right? Because just trying to stay on format.
Yeah. No, that's not a problem.
Okay. Well, everybody, Keith, everybody, thank you for coming to the Quantum Show. This has been great. And Keith, I hope this has been a different perspective being asked of one of your past lives or of your past lives.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So I know everyone always wants to talk about the tech, the woo is what they put it. The tech, the people, the aliens, and all this stuff. But I want to get to like, give me the normal the normal stuff. How did they go to work every day? What happens if you get a parking ticket? Just
Yeah.
because
You want something you can relate to in today's world.
I want something everyone can relate to. So
Yeah.
thank you once again for doing this very unexpected interview. And I know I wasn't trying to ambush you at all, Keith.
I
This
didn't
was
feel ambushed at all. It was just simply a question of making sure that my time and my health held static.
yes. Well, I it seems to have. We're not dead yet, so
Not
we
this week.
survived.
Yeah.
Alrighty then. Well, everybody, I will be coming back on for the panel discussion. Keith, you're invited to come back to the panel if you are able to make it, unless you have something to do or you just start winding down. Totally understandable.
I'm
It's
just
late
gonna go
here.
play Skyrim for an hour here. I'm not ready to wind down.
Okay. Well, you have fun because I am going to go ahead and get this next show set up for in about 20-30 minutes, as usual. So thanks, everybody. And I'm going to start pushing them buttons. Keep it quantum, Keith. I am.
Absolutely. You
Everybody,
take care of that, Nathan.
talk to you soon. Pushing
Absolutely.